as an entity. Economic development, we continue to have discussions with businesses about locating in Discovery Square. We've always framed our value proposition at the top of the list was access and proximity to Mayo Clinic. And that value proposition, we feel that was validated in our success in leasing up one Discovery Square. And it was a hard and fun and challenging process to get to that point. I think with the quite a few months ago, it seems like forever ago, but when Mayo was announcing the rollout of the Mayo Clinic platform activities, that further highlighted the value of partnership with Mayo. And now most recently with Mayo Clinic's really highly visible leadership in COVID response, it really has showcased that value proposition significantly, we believe. And judging from recent surge in interest in Discovery Square, we've been taking a lot of calls and having a lot of meetings recently. It seems clear that the really forward-looking businesses and organizations, both nationally and internationally, they see this as a time to forge ahead with new opportunities. So we have a lot of discussions with a lot of businesses across multiple technology verticals. We can't really say much about it at this point, but we like where we are going. I think the key takeaway messages around economic development. One is we've talked about the reality of existing office space coming available and the shift to remote working. While that we know that's a reality, we know that businesses that we've been recruiting have moved into Discovery Square, not necessarily in one Discovery Square. That reality does not fundamentally change our value proposition, but it does create new opportunity. And so we intend to see how we can take advantage of that. And the second message I would like to convey is that we inspire confidence with the businesses that we talk to, and they're moving into Discovery Square when it means they're moving into an ecosystem that's part of a larger strategic initiative. And so this isn't just a place for them to put their business, but it's part of a larger effort. And they find that inspiring in our conversations with them. Discovery Square 2, construction has begun, tenant recruitment is underway, as I mentioned. Entrepreneurship activities are really coming to the forefront now as we enter into phase 2 of the DMC plan. We've been able to bring businesses here, and now it's time for us to intensify our efforts around entrepreneurship, and these partnerships with Medical Alley and Collider and Mayo and Reddy and other organizations is really important, as well as our participation in the Southeast Minnesota E1 network, which is part of the Launch MN DEED initiative that just celebrated their 1-year anniversary yesterday, actually. There are 3 new residential buildings that are up and leasing space, and they have retail spaces that are now complete and ready for leasing. And then Discovery Walk is underway. And I think the bulk of the conversation here now will be about Discovery Walk. If we move on to the next slide, please. So
before we move on to Discovery Walk, could you one of the things that we just had this discussion about office space, are we correct in hearing that because because of Mayo's visibility with COVID, Discovery Square is really going to be counter-cyclical, that it actually is a really good time to be leasing up that space?
Well, we see a lot of interest, and we presume in part it's because of what Mayo's performance in COVID and of course Mayo's reputation longstanding. We've been having a lot of meetings recently and a lot of conversations across a lot of sectors, some of which we believe is generated by Mayo's activities in COVID response. It creates a lot of opportunity. And
I think it'd be fair to say, Chris, the other dynamic that's occurring is that the first set of tenants in Discovery Square are themselves becoming attractors to
yes.
other businesses. And you may want to just say something about the multiplier effect that's happening.
Yeah, that's a good point, Patrick. Thank you. That's always been part of the strategy, is attract the attractors, and those businesses that have moved in are having conversations with their partners, 1, and 2, some of those businesses, they're seeing the value of being there such that they might consider what their footprint looks like in the future, as well as growing because of growing relationships. So I think there's multiple multiplying activities and effects that are taking place there.
That's great news. Okay.
Related to Discovery Walk, we do have a request for the board here today to approve the design and authorize completion of the construction documents and bidding.
Could I just make to make a distinction for clarity, oh, go ahead, Bill. Chris, I guess you're probably, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you'll catch it if I miss it, but we make a point of coming to the board at key milestone points of all of our projects. And this is a point where the design documentation is complete. And we're seeking approval from the board on this. We will be back to the board again prior to construction as we get the construction documents put together. Is that what you wanted to cover, Patrick?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just a high-level view of the timeline. This is not a timeline that began yesterday. This began back in 2015 with the development plan being adopted. And as a group and as a community and as an organization, we've been working our way through this timeline. We find ourselves now in November, seeking board approval November of this year, knowing that, and we anticipate going out to bid in the spring of next year and construction beginning next year, should it all go according to plan. So there was a lot of, there has been a lot of community input along the way in what Discovery Walk will look like. And this slide is just highlighting the key takeaways from some of the early community engagement that took place about this feeling like a park and being flexible, promoting health and wellness, and we can all read those ourselves. We are pleased to say that we now have a design that lives up to the expectations of our community and our board. And there's three reasons why that's the case. And I'll be touching on this in a minute, but we've had input from underrepresented community members via the community co-designers, and I'll talk in more detail about that in a minute. We have 3 local artists that are embedded within the design team, and we've had regular touch points with business and property owners adjacent to the project site. So there's been a lot of effort in getting input from the community. Maybe jumped ahead a little bit, but if we could go to slide 6, please.
Right.
Yeah. So this is a high-level view of how this fits in, and if we put this into the context of the prior slide showing the Heart of the City project and that the new initiative that Patrick was referring to, this is where we're connecting the heart of the city to the Zumbro River by way of Soldiers Field Park. This ultimately is 5 blocks to get us into the Soldiers Field Park. There is some elevation change. The highest elevation point is on the 400 block, which is where the One Discovery Square building is. And so it really creates this nice flow of movement north to south along 2nd Avenue. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is where we just a few comments about our community co-designers. This was an intentional effort in partnership with the University of Minnesota, and Kevin Bright in our office led this effort to bring people from historically underrepresented communities into the process of helping us understand how this space can and should operate to be more inclusive, both from minority populations, physical disabilities, and from a health perspective. And the initial work was so effective that members of this group actually became part of the design team, and they are embedded into the design team going forward. And it's safe to say that the design and the functionality of the space has been fundamentally improved because of their participation. And we see this as a model for our projects going forward. The community co-designers have been incorporated into the transit project as an example. And we would like to see this replicated in other projects as well. We also, going on to the next slide, we have 3 local artists that are now embedded within the team, within the design team: Zoe Janelle, Sophia Che, and Ayub Haji Omar. Zoe and Sophia are immigrants to Rochester, and Ayub comes from a family of immigrants. And they, as I mentioned, they are embedded right into the design team, and we've had some early peeks at the work that they're envisioning, and we're going to learn more over the coming month or so as their work emerges. It's exciting to see this and see how they're incorporating it right from the beginning. It's not just a statue plopped down in the middle of the walk. It's actually embedded within the design, and that is significantly different approach to incorporating art that we're seeing, and it's been enlightening to see how that can be so effective. So real briefly, the design features, this is the meat of what is within the design documents. On the left-hand side are what we refer to as the base design features. So these are the things that the the construction package will need to include. And you can read them all there. It includes anything from ADA accessibility to snow melt and art and lighting and traffic calming design. So those on the left will be included in the base package, if you will. On the right are what we would refer to as optional design features. Maybe in the past you've heard the term add alts, but these are the things that have come out of our conversations with the community co-designers, the members of the community, the business community, about what else might also be important. So weather shelters along the way, snow melt in some of the plazas and garden walks as opposed to the main walkways, extension into Soldiersville North, and some utility upgrades. So we will get bids, or we will get estimates, I'll say, not bid, but we will get estimates on those elements as well, but they would be considered optional, and it will be up to the board to make decisions on which of those they would incorporate into the final package or not. The next slide, please. So here rather than stepping through block by block in the interest of time, we'll just showcase one of the blocks. This would be the 400 block. So this is the block between 4th and 5th Street, southeast, or southwest, sorry. This is where One Discovery Square is located, and Discovery Square 2 is being constructed. So north is to the right, and in the upper right, that would be the plaza space just outside of One Discovery Square for orientation. And you'll see that although it looks like 2nd Avenue is actually a street, it is actually part of the plaza space. It's all at street level. So you can think of the imagery that you saw from Heart of the City as inspiration for what this will look like based on this design. So curbless streets. The traffic is still running north-south, but it's pushed way over to the eastern edge of this, and in what is now currently street space will become this green space with a weather shelter, perhaps, if the board decides that is necessary, plus some cafe seating, some sidewalk space, some what's called cliff rooms, so space where you can step off of the walkway. That's the bottom left corner, where you can step off the walkway into these sort of semi-private kinds of conversation spaces that people aspire to have. Lots of trees, lots of green space, lots of gathering space, and shelter from the weather. And so if the 2 slides ago, it was a bulleted list of what the design looks like, and if the previous slide was imagery of what the space looks like, this takes a look at the space more from a numbers perspective. And some things to highlight here. Existing landscape area in these 4 blocks stretch is about 7,000 square feet, and this design increases that to 38,700 square feet. We go from 39 trees to 313 trees. Social space, which we've learned is really important these days, and adequate social space increases from 2,000 square feet to 38,000 square feet. The bulk of that being on the 300 block, which we did not showcase here, but a small plaza space on the 300 block. And then seating, going from, we have 65 linear feet of seating on those blocks right now. So there's not a lot of place to sit. And we increased that to 1,300 linear feet of seating space. And then as somebody whose focus is on business development and entrepreneurship, and Discovery Square being that place of that economic diversification, we currently right now can host 3, maybe 4 vendors along the length of Discovery Walk, that being food trucks running off of their diesel generators. And we anticipate being able to host up to 35 vendors in this space, all on the electrical grid rather than running generators. And we see this really as a platform, being able to use this space as a platform for small businesses, business startups, launches, and especially for underrepresented communities or community members where they can start their businesses, minority business owners, and the like. So as a business owner, a business director, business development director, this is a piece that is particularly exciting to me because it aligns with the mission of Discovery Square. So bringing it back to the request action, that's a high-level summary, I guess, of the design of Discovery Walk, and what we have before you for consideration is approving that design and authorizing completion of the construction documents.
Okay, any comments, members? It's absolutely wonderful work. I just love the detail you've looked at to do this to an inclusive process, and so many other things, including that point about the electrical grid. Really nice work. Seeing no other comments, Kathleen, I'm going to ask you to read the roll, after which I'll ask folks for a motion and a second, and then we'll call the roll. So Kathleen, could you read the resolution?
Mr. Chair, the resolution is in the packet, and as has been referenced, it asks the board to approve the design, development,